Okay, we're here in our IT team site, and you'll see in the upper right corner once more we are signed in as Greg Lilly. Now, Greg, like we said, wants to create a list that'll calculate values so he can keep track of spending on peripherals. So, the first thing we need to do is create the list. Now, previously, over here in the quick launch, we clicked on site contents. It gave us the option to add an app, and then from the apps, we selected custom lists. So let's go ahead, and because it's SharePoint, of course, there's more than one way to do the same thing. We're going to go this time up here to the upper right corner to our settings gear. Click on that, and you'll see we have add an app. So we'll click there. And look at that. It brings us to the same place we would have been if we would have clicked Site Contents, Add an App. Two ways to do the exact same thing. And we're going to choose Custom List. We get this window again. And once more, we have to give it a name. And let's call this one Peripheral Spending. We can go ahead and click on Create. And there's our list, Peripheral Spending. Now, we didn't select the advanced options to give it a description, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and we'll go to our list tab and click on list settings. And you'll see we have list name, description, and navigation. We can add our description here. So this time, let's give this the description of how much we spent on stuff. Do we want to display this list on the quick launch? Yes or no? Well, yeah, let's put it there. That's really easy for us to go ahead and find it then. So we'll click on Save. And there it is. There is our peripheral spending list. All right. So we're done, right? We've got our list. No. We're not done. You know better than that. But remember, we already have one column. That's that title column. We talked about this in the last lesson. Every time we create a list, it's going to give us that first default title column. And we don't want title. We don't want title as a name, but we saw that we can't delete this first column, so we have to rename it. So we're going to go up to our list tab once again. Going to go to our list settings, and we're going to click down here under columns on the title list, the title column. And again, notice there's no delete button down here. So what we're going to do is simply change the name. And we're going to call this item because this is where we're going to list the item we bought. Keyboard, mouse, USB drive, hard drive, whatever it is. We're going to go ahead and select that. I'm not going to worry about a description. Do we want to require this column contains information? Yes, we got to have a name for the item. So we will go ahead and choose OK. Let's go back to our peripheral spending, and now we see the first column is item. All right, so now we need to go ahead and start adding those other columns. So once more, we're going to go to our list tab, and you'll see right here in our manage views, we have create columns. And we see the list of the different types of columns we can create. Single line of text is the first one because it's the most popular, and when we created the list, that's the one that is created by default, is the single line of text. And this next column that we want, because we already have that first one for item, is the item cost. So that's not going to be text. We want that to be currency. And you'll see that it has all the different currency symbols. And if we scroll down here, we have the currency format. You can see we don't have to simply stick with dollars. We have pounds. We have all kinds of currency from all over the world, depending on what it is. But we're here in the U.S., so we are simply going to leave it on U.S. dollars and U.S. currency. We can give it a description. We'll say this is the cost of the item. And we have to give the column a name. And you know what? Let's just call it cost. Keep it simple. Do we want to require that this column contains information? Well, yeah, we do. Without the cost, this isn't going to help us at all. Now, we can specify a minimum and maximum allowed value. So if we want to say, put a limit on how much we're going to spend, let's say. So let's say that the limit is going to be $500. Anything that's going to cost more than $500, we're going to have other approval for. So the minimum, we'll leave it at 0. So now, if we try to put in a cost for something that costs more than $500, we're going to have a problem. So we're going to leave that there. Number of decimal places, you can go out as far as you want. We're going to leave it on automatic, and for dollars, it's going to be 2. Default value is currency or calculated value. We're going to get to the calculated value. We're not there yet. So we're going to leave it at currency. We'll set the default at simply 0. All right, I think everything looks good. Let's go ahead and choose OK. And there is our second column. So now we have item and cost. We need to add another column. So once more, we're going to go ahead up to, you know what, rather than do it here, remember there's more than one way to do things. Let's go to the list settings. Go down here a little bit, and you'll see we have the Create Column button here as well. And it just brings up the same window, the same page. So there's no difference in what happens. It just is how you get there. Now this column is going to be how many of the item that we purchase. So we're simply going to put in our hashtag for number of items. And this, once again, this is going to be a number. Come on, there we go. Number, not currency, just a number. And the description, we're not going to bother with the description. Do we require that this column contains information? Now, this one we're going to say no, because what Greg may want to do is just set up a list of all the most common things that he buys, and then he can just fill out the number as it changes. So there may be no number initially in this column. So we'll say no for this one. Now, we didn't talk about this either. Enforce unique values. Well, this is important if you don't want to have two items with the same number. Now, when we're dealing with quantity and cost, this is probably not something that we want. So we're also going to leave that no. We're not going to worry about this. Decimal place is automatic. Default number, we can put in a 0 again. And you'll see that we can show this as a percentages also. That doesn't, for what we're doing here, that isn't going to help us. So do we want to add this to the default view? Yes, we do. That's fine. We're going to go ahead and choose OK. Go back to our peripheral spending. And that. Now we have number of items. Now we're getting somewhere. We're actually almost done, believe it or not. All we have left to do is add in our calculated value and our formula. But let's go and take a look at these and start adding some values in here before we go ahead and get the calculated value column. So we're going to click here to New Item. And if you watched the last lesson, this looks familiar. We're going to give the item a name. Let's just say keyboard. And, you know, you can get very specific in here. Cost. We're going to say the keyboard was $19.95. And how many did we buy? We're going to say, let's say initially Greg just bought 5 just to have some on hand. And you see there's our first item in our list. All right, let's go ahead. Let's add another one just so we can have some fun. Let's call this one an external hard drive. And we'll say it's 2 terabytes. And the cost was $99. And let's just say that we ordered 5 of those as well. There. Now, Greg could go ahead and do all of this addition in his head or on a piece of paper or in Excel. But we want to add that calculated value column so it'll give us those totals right here where we want them, easy to access, easy to see. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's add that calculated value column.